All right. Right. 20 minutes is going to whistle by. So, a huge MadFest welcome to everyone here. Thank you so much for coming. Good morning. I really am. We are really grateful for you coming out. We're packed, which is bloody brilliant. So, my name's Rich McHardy. All I know is agency new business. That's all I've ever done. I get my kicks out of gut feel and impact and influence and authentic connections between brands and agencies. That's all I know. But the machines are coming. And so we are here to discuss and debate whether we need to boot the bots out or whether there is room to coexist. So it's a big topic, right? So I got some big brains to help me out here, and also making their MadFest speaker debuts are the fantastic Laura McNally from Auto Trader and Andrew Nicholson from Kulea. So we're going to kick on, right? Because probably a minute's gone already, and you don't need to hear from me. So, Andrew, time is going to whistle by. Can you tell us what Kulea is all about, and why should people stick around and not bugger off after 30 seconds of this 20 minutes?
That is a very good question, Rich. So, Kulea is a marketing automation platform. We started life very much SaaS, similar to something like HubSpot Marketing Suite or MailChimp on steroids. Appropriately for today's conversation, we very quickly learned no matter how good the technology, you need people to run it. So we wrapped a human layer around our Kulea technology, and these days we're a tech-enabled lead generation agency. So that's what we do. We have conversations. We build conversations and relationships for our clients. Now, the question there about you guys, what are you going to get out of the next 20 minutes? So I hope you're going to get, or take away from this, that actually we're not redundant. We're not redundant as a species. We are certainly not redundant as marketers. I can see someone fist pumping already. So there you go. So that is what, at the end of this 20 minutes, I want you to come away with. And I'm going to hand over to Laura.
Brilliant. So we've got optimism already, and we've got a few fist pumps. So we're here. The rebellion of humans are here. So, Laura, please tell me about, define Auto Trader and tell us about your role and what you want people to gain from hearing us having our chat.
Thanks, Rich. So I co-lead consumer marketing at Auto Trader. There's probably people in this audience that remember us as a magazine and hopefully have some cherished memories of that. We've evolved a lot since the print days, so we're now available online and via our app. And you can get everything. I guess a lot of people are predisposed to think it's just about cars, but you can get everything from an electric bike through to a tractor. So we're here to serve any vehicle need that you may have. And then I guess the message that I would really love people to take away is one of hope today. I think there's a lot going on in the world right now that would give people reason to lose hope, especially with the general election this week. I mean, maybe some people think that brings hope. I don't know. But we want to promise, actually, that there's hope in this room today, in this moment.
Beautiful. So optimism and a promise of hope. And the humans are here to stay. So, Laura, carrying on with you, in your opinion, we talk a lot about what works in brand comms and marketing, but, what's not working?
Good question. I think from an AI perspective, when it comes to brands and communications, one of the things that can be easily forgotten is the responsibility that brands have. So if we're not fact-checking and adding that layer of human intervention, I think there's a lot of misinformation that could spread. If I think of an automotive-specific example, so there's lots in the news at the moment about electric cars and them catching a fire, and statistically, an ICE vehicle is 20 times more likely to catch fire than an electric vehicle, but if you were just surrounding yourself in the echo chambers of large language models, you could quite quickly believe that that was true. So I think there's a duty of care when it comes to brands and communications to intervene. I also think the environmental impact is something that can be easily forgotten. So there's lots of brands that go very hard on their messaging around sustainability, and yet they're doing a lot in the development of AI, and it's such an unknown quantity in terms of the amount of electricity that's used when it comes to AI. It's just so unknown that it can be an incongruous message. So I think the communications upon that point is something that needs to be factored in. Tone of voice, I think, is also a really interesting one. So there's some examples we've had recently where Rory Reid, who presents our YouTube content, we've asked AI to come up with scripts for those reviews, and it will come back with things like, hey folks, or buckle up, and they're just not phrases that Rory would ever use at all. And I think that's a really good example where it takes, I guess, a very distinct tone of voice for a brand for it to be picked up. But
So that buckle up thing, that's something that Jeremy Clarkson would say, isn't it? Let's be honest.
True. And that's a good point, actually, because Rory used to present on Top Gear, so you can see why AI has gone to that point of reference, but it's not contextually relevant anymore because he's been with Autotrader since 2019. So that's kind of a key example, I think, where tone of voice, it takes a brand a long time to develop a tone of voice that's distinct enough for it to be picked up and used correctly by a large language model. And then the other one, I think, is around... there's like, well, I guess it goes back to that duty of care, and the environmental credentials of a brand could be put at risk quite significantly by AI. I think that's a really important one. So
we also talked about bias.
True. Perpetuating bias, actually, that's a good one. So I think if you think about the people that are developing these AI models, they're all tech bros. They're white American men in Silicon Valley, to put it bluntly. And I think, therefore, a lot of what's produced is influenced by that development. So I would love to know how the results would differ if it was women or a diverse mix of people involved in the development. And then that, the content that's featured is often skewed that way. We are doing a lot around automotive and women and trying to address the gender imbalance that exists in that industry more than other industries. And I think we could quite quickly undo a lot of that good work if we were to solely rely on AI.
Yeah, and one other thing that we talked about just before, a phrase that I love, was this bubble of consensus and feedback loops. Do you want to talk about that just for a sec?
Yeah, I think there's a danger that we just go into these echo chambers where there's a race to homogeny and the variance is kind of lost. And there's another example, I guess, for Autotrader in particular, where when we go to do a car review, so say it's a brand new Ford Explorer and it's an electric vehicle, there's so many variables that are the same in that scenario. So you get the same amount of time with that car, you get access to the same car, you're in the same location, and the only variables are your presenter, the strength of their script, and your production. So it becomes, I think the bar is raised in that scenario where in order to stand out, if everyone's trying to hit an embargo at the same time, you really need to be standing out on the strength of things that only humans can bring to the table. So the creativity, the vocabulary that's used in that script, like they can't be replicated by AI in the same way. So I think that's the message of hope starting to seep through there.
Love it. And I'm always on the lookout for merchandise. I can't help myself. But only humans is something that I've written down, which I think would work on a T-shirt. Okay. So we talked, from your point of view, that's a very good case for the humans. Andrew, what's not working in your world?
Okay, so I'm not going to sit here slating AI for the next 10 minutes. I love AI. It's helped me on a personal level, and if we've got time, I'll talk about that later as well. And within our business, I am one of those tech bros. I'm not from the US, but I'm from the UK, so I understand where you're coming from, Laura. We use AI for research. We use AI for content draft generation. We use it throughout the business. We're building it into our own platform. And it's really good for a lot of things. But dear God, isn't it dreadful when it comes to communication? And we found this time and time again. So our specialization is email and LinkedIn outreach, crafting those messages. And we put a lot of time and effort into that. And then you see AI outreach, AI communications, and it's uniformly dreadful. It's standardized, communication by numbers. And you can spot AI a mile off. And because of that, it comes across as incredibly inauthentic. Now, we were talking earlier, I don't know if anybody saw the Christmas lectures, which Christmas seems like a lifetime ago now. But what they did, give Christmas lectures, get a load of very lucky kids in a room together, and you talk about things. And this year it was AI. And what they did is they took a volunteer from the audience, and they took this young girl and they put her in a box. Now, it was a big box and it had air holes, so she was absolutely fine. But they then took an AI and put it in the adjacent box and fired a load of questions. And it was at the audience to kind of differentiate which answers came from the AI and which answers came from the child. And 100%, the children identified which ones were the AI, which were the fake answers, and which ones were the children's answers. And this is children. So it's really quite easy to identify AI at this point in time, it has to be said. The other issue, and this is more of a personal one that I found, is AI uses pattern matching. So what that means is AI is a massive plagiarization machine. Okay? And what it's doing is it's looking at everything. You know how AI works. It's looking at everything that's out there. It's compounding it, putting it all together, and then it's giving you what it thinks is the right response based on the patterns it's found. Now, firstly, humans are really good at identifying patterns. They stand out really clearly to us. It's one of our evolutionary traits. So that's a big red flag. But secondly, those patterns are quite often wrong. And I've got a personal example here. So it's a bit of a shallow plug. But I wrote this book. And I genuinely wrote it, but I used Midjourney AI to illustrate it. And it's done a fantastic job. But I'm going to ask Laura, hand over. So, Laura, can you count the fingers on this hand?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And that is published, and it's in Amazon. So that's my cock-up, and I'll hold my hands up to that. But the issue here is that AI looked at it, and it went, oh, there's a hand, there's another hand, and it amalgamated them, and it came up with a 6-fingered mutant, who happens to be the main character in my story. So that is an issue. AI cannot be allowed to run free without that human layer checking things, because you really do need oversight on pretty much all AI that goes out. It hallucinates, it makes things up, it makes mistakes. It almost sounds human.
I think I've got the back of my T-shirt now, so humans only on the front and 6-fingered mutants on the back. Okay, 2 related questions to bring us to a close, because I'm feeling we've got about 4 minutes left, which means that we've had a good time and it's rattling by, and thank you for still being here. I've got 2 related questions. So, Andrew, first off, where's the role of the human then? Come on, let's finish with the positivity for the human.
Okay, so positive. Okay, we do outreach, we do all the manage, we get the meetings booked, but at the end of the day, we're booking meetings for humans talking to humans. And it's an old sales maxim, humans sell to humans. And that is absolutely true. It wasn't invented for AI, but it is so much more relevant today than it ever was. So that's the first point. Now, my second point comes wrapped up in a warning. So I don't know if anyone's heard of a Dunning-Kruger effect. And essentially what this is it's stupid people don't know how stupid they are because they're stupid. Yeah, and I think we've all experienced that at some point in our lives.
That sounds pretty harsh, man.
It's harsh, but it's so true.
And we've promised them hope.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Okay, and I'm going to compound this. So the Dunning-Kruger effect is compounded by the Google effect. Now, the Google effect is we don't retain information anymore. We don't need to because we've got the wealth of the world's information in our pockets. So we forget things. We no longer know how to navigate because we use Google Maps. We're losing skills. Now, I worry that is going to happen as a result of AI in the creative industries, because you don't have to be creative. If you're only aiming for beige, if you're only aiming for mediocre, you could pretty much get by just using AI. And institutionally, we will forget these skills. We will forget how to be creative. We will forget how to be innovative. We'll forget original thinking. And this is going to happen unless we rein it in and we actually start putting the impetus on humans. Now, I love AI, as I've said. Use AI for the building blocks, but use humanity, use yourselves, use your brains to make sure that you put the finishing touches, that you project that innovative thinking onto those building blocks that AI builds. Because creativity is a muscle, and if you don't use a muscle, it wastes away. So, think about that and be very careful about that outcome.
Beautiful. I love it. Okay, Laura, we talked about hope right at the beginning, so come on. Let's finish with a message of hope from you.
Well, I think we should treat AI as additive, not as a replacement. I think that's a really key message, and that is a hopeful message too. It's also, I think, it's loaded with averages, and I think that's a really useful thing to keep in mind. Like, if you want an average outcome, then use AI. But who wants to be average? Like, unless you're, I don't know, maybe you're planning a murder and you want to blend in, but unless that's your situation, and hopefully it's not, then, use it as your baseline and to build your foundation, but don't let it be your be-all and end-all. There's also an interesting reflection model. It's by Terry Borton, and it's called What, So What, and Now What? And I think a good way to think about the application of AI is using it for the what, but then I think the so what and the now what can only really be truly got from humans. So the interpretation and the application, I think there's just a lifelong journey for humans in that role ahead. So yeah, I think hope for humanity. I'm going to be chanting it, hope for humanity.
And you referenced something beautiful, The Last Famine in England. Tell us about The Last Famine in England.
Oh yeah, that's a book I'm reading at the moment by Matt Haig, and it's a really good book. If someone's read it already, which is good. I'm not quite finished it yet, but it's written through the eyes of a dog, so it's a really interesting point of view. And they talk in it about this Labrador pact and this unwritten pact that Labradors have between one another to protect the families that they're assigned to. And I think we should emulate that with a human pact. And I think if we control and treat AI in the right way, then we've got our own pact that we can start here today and carry forward.
I love that. And look, we've got probably a minute and a half, 2 minutes left. So, Andrew, there's something else you wanted to say to finish, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. So I started this session talking about how I've got a lot to be personally thankful for from AI. And I'm going to go a little bit into that because this is a story of hope. So last year, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was early stage. We went to the oncologist at the NHS. And the oncologist was a specialist in chemotherapy. So, unsurprisingly, they said, OK, she needs to be treated with chemotherapy. Because when you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail, right? But it was early stage cancer. And a few red flags went up for us. So I do what I do best, is I went over to ChatGPT. I put in her doctor's notes. And I said, look, acting as an oncologist with 10 years' experience, what would you do? And actually, ChatGPT gave us a shitload of other options. And we took those to a private consultant. One of the private consultants said, yep, that one will work. It'll work really well. Went back to the NHS, to the consultant. He went, yeah, all right then. And a year later, my wife is cancer-free. So that's a really positive story about how you can use AI and ChatGPTs or GPTs in general out there for a really positive outcome. I will say, it is the building block. It is the starting point for these conversations. It is the research. There's a lot of things that AI does really, really well. That's one of them. What it doesn't do, and I'm looking out today, I'm looking at all of you out there, is it doesn't do creativity. It doesn't do originality. And that's on you guys. So I'm going to leave that message of hope. Thank you.
Brilliant. OK. So in the last 30 seconds, have a look at the work of Noam Chomsky, because he was the guy that helped me and Andrew and Laura to actually write our heading for this. He's got a big brain. He's one of the godfathers of consumer behaviour, so check him out. Also look at the Dunning-Kruger effect, because Andrew told me about that a couple of days ago, and I'm definitely getting that checked out. Terry Borton, which was Laura's suggestion, and the Labrador Pact from The Last Famine in England sounds like a cracking read. In addition to that, thank you all so much for coming. There is a role for the humans. We can feel that. There's T-shirts. There's everything to be had from being human. But I think we can coexist with the machines and we can work together. Have an amazing MadFest. Thank you so much for coming. We love you all. Have a brilliant time.